Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another commentary. Um, this video, some of this stuff may be a bit rehashed. It also may be like a tiny bit more autobiographical than I would normally like to do. Um, so I'm not sure if you guys are going to be crazy about this one, but the reason I made it is I'm responding to a commenter who asked the question that I think it's a good question, and it's a question that I have some insight in. I don't know if my answer is necessarily going to help anybody who's going through the same thing, but I can at least provide, my experience, especially because I'm older than a lot of you guys, so I've kind of been at the beginning and at the end, and, am able to look at it kind of like with a step back. Anyway, he was asking, I don't have the exact question in front of me, but he was saying, like, how do you deal, with being mediocre looking? And he said, like, beyond, and he's like, and I'm talking about, like, beyond being attractive to women, like, just, being out on the street, like, knowing that you're not very good looking. How does that, and like the low self-esteem that comes with it, how do you deal with that? Yeah, and I think it's a good question because that's something that I've always cared. I've always, you know, been much more concerned with how I felt about my own looks than with how I thought other people felt with my looks. For me, like if he was just talking about, I think he may have meant the question just in terms of face. I actually kind of like my face, but it's like, like I get that, when I was younger, when I was in high school or college, I had girls responded, okay to my face. I mean, I've definitely like, so I guess like I said, I've said before in a previous video, I think it may have been a mixture of, my charisma. I'm not trying to brag. May have had something to do with it, but particularly non-white girls. I guess I have like a bit of a JBW thing going. They responded okay to my face. Now, the thing is, I always knew. So like for me, that was never too much of an issue. Now I'm kind of aged out, so it's not really relevant. But and as you guys see, obviously you can see I'm Norwooding, and that bothers me a little bit, I guess. The But like my face just isn't something that, like, it's just not something about myself that I'm unhappy with. However, that's just the case now. It wasn't always the case. Think about, like, when I was in high school and in middle school, I considered myself super attractive. I didn't think I was like, I think the heartthrob back then was like Leonardo DiCaprio. I didn't think I was in his level or anything, but I thought I was, up there. And it wasn't really until it was like in some time in high school it kind of occurred to me, like, oh, wait a minute, I may think this, but it's pretty obvious that girls don't. There's always been girls who thought I was cute, but they definitely didn't think that I was. No girls thought I was as good looking as I seem to think of myself as. But honestly, to tell you the truth, my reaction to that was just that, well, they're wrong. And I figured, like, and I really thought it was like, well, the reason, like, look, I really am really good looking, but the girls don't see it because my social status is kind of low, so they don't see it. That's the other. It just didn't. It was kind of like, I mean, I just figured they didn't get it. It was in college, and I was less social in college. I was more of a recluse. This is kind of a long story, and there was more going on more going on here. But there was a time in college where my view kind of flipped, where I didn't think that I was really good looking. I thought I was really ugly, and in particular, I was concerned about my nose, which granted, really is pretty fucked up. The Um, I mean, it's definitely my worst feature by far. I mean, I considered myself really attractive. Other than that, I just figured like, oh, my nose is a disaster, and it like, but it like became like an obsession, and it really bothered me a lot. Like to the point where like I couldn't even look in the mirror when I was shaving. I had to like go like this because my reflection bothered me so bad, and you know, there it was kind of the reverse. You know, like I knew still, like I knew, like in college, that there were still some girls who were interested in me, and so I knew that, like, you know, however, maybe some people thought that I was at least okay looking or whatever, but I myself was like convinced that I was hideous, and it really bothered me a lot. And in fact, it bothered me so much that it made me suicidal. That was when, this will be like a different video down the road. It was sometime in college, thinking about that I got so depressed about it that I started thinking about committing suicide and researching it. And ultimately, I would make a suicide attempt a couple years later. So, I mean, the thing, and, you know, I remember there was this time even that I had to get a ride from this mechanic because I had a flat tire or something. And, you know, I was like just so depressed, you know, about my looks, that I was sitting there in the seat with it. And the mechanic, you know, he doesn't even know me. He had just like come over and picked me up. And so he just looked over at me. He's like, dude, whatever you're upset about, it's not that bad. You know, it's just like, I mean, that's like some guy who didn't even know me could tell how depressed I was. By the way, when I ultimately did try to commit suicide, again, I'll probably make a video about this later, it had absolutely nothing to do with my looks whatsoever. It was over something else. So yeah, you know, then it would have been like, you know, as for that, like, you know, I ended up I guess I just kind of got over it with time. You know, it got to a point where like I became kind of like, I don't know. I mean, obviously my face didn't get any better or worse for that matter. I just guess I kind of started to sort of like it again. I don't know. The like even now, I guess I'm not like, I don't really like to look at myself in mirrors too much. It depends. I think in some mirrors I look okay, in some mirrors I really don't. I usually think I look okay on camera. Like, I mean, obviously I don't look presentable, but I don't think like when I see myself in the videos, not that I really, I mean, usually if I'm like rewatching a video that I make, I'm just listening to it and I'm playing a game, but I don't really like when I do have to see myself, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't bother me. So yeah, I guess I grew to kind of like my face again. And the thing is, like when I say like it, it doesn't mean that like I think that, you know, no, that I'm Henry Cavill or well, I actually don't think Henry Cavill's that ugly, that handsome. I think what's his name, like maybe like a Jude Law when he was young. I certainly don't think, you know, I'm like that. But I don't think even at my most delusional, I ever thought I was anything like that. And I definitely get that, like, if you ask, you know, women, like I'm talking about like even women who wouldn't be biased against me, like you ask them about my looks, they would say, I mean, they would say that, you know, I think most of them would probably say below average. But the thing is, people say that about everybody. You know, it's like, I don't take it too seriously. I really don't take what women take about looks seriously. But that's like, the bottom line though is I get that most people out there don't find me attractive. It just doesn't really bother me because I kind of like my face. And I think that this commenter's question, I think the problem with it, another thing is that it's like, for me, it's two things. One is I do kind of like my face. The other is that face just isn't something I really care about. So like to me, it would be like, to me, being insecure about, like, let's say I hated my face. Let's say I thought my face was like, you know, repulsive. That, like, there was a time in my life where I did think that and it did bother me a lot. But now it wouldn't really bother me that much, even if I did think that way, because it's just not something I value. It would be like, you know, like it would be kind of like, this is a bit more of an extreme example, but like, for instance, I'm bad at math, and it would be like, so like being if I was really dislike my face, that really wouldn't bother me too much more than the fact that I'm bad at math. It's like, yeah, I wish I was better at math, but at the end of the day, I don't really care. And I mean, my job doesn't have anything to do with math. That's kind of how I would feel about my face. Um, I think, but when I was this guy's age, and I'm pretty sure he's in his early 20s, um, I absolutely would have felt the same way. Like, it had absolutely nothing to do with attracting women and stuff. But I mean, that's a completely, I mean, whatever, man. It's about the fact that I hated the way I look, and I felt horrible about myself, and it was really hard, and for me, um, like the short answer is no, but you're not gonna like this answer, okay? If you're asking, like, look, I hate my face. How do I get over? How do I cope with that? How do I deal with that? If that's what you feel, the only thing that's going to make you like get over it is for you to stop valuing your looks. Is to for like like being ugly. I don't know if this guy's ugly or not. He probably isn't, given the way that guys on the internet grade male looks. But being ugly is only a problem if it bothers you. And you can say this about anything else. And maybe I've said this in a previous video. Things are only problems if they bother you. Like, if it doesn't bother you, it's not really a problem. Although if you have something like, if like your arm has gangrene and that doesn't bother you, then the fact that it's not bothering you is a problem in and of itself. So there are some exceptions. But like, the only way that you're ever going to have 100% peace with it is to not value looks one way, or not value how you look one way or the other. I know it's not an answer that anybody wants to hear, but it's the only way out of it. I think the more blue-pilled way would be to say, like, to learn to like your face, and that can happen. I mean, it happened for me, but I don't know if everybody's going to be able to pull it off. I do think if you're young and if your looks bother you, I do think that you'll grow to like your looks a little bit more as you get older. But ultimately, the only way you're really going to get over it is to just not care about it. I mean, that's really why it doesn't bother me, because it's just kind of like, I don't really care that much about my face. But like, for me, I mean, like I've mentioned this before, I care a little bit about my height, and I care a lot about my frame. And that's where I can really relate to this question, like in my current life. Like, I don't like, I mean, the gyms I think are all closed right now still because of COVID. But like, I mean, I'm kind of a recluse anyway, but I don't like leaving the house. Like, or any place that I'm going to be around, like, other people, I don't like that. Like, other people, because I don't like being frame mobbed. Because my frame really bothers me a lot. It doesn't bother me so, I mean, I can deal with it as long as I'm by myself, but I hate being frame mobbed. Being height mobbed isn't great, but it's kind of like, whatever. It doesn't, it doesn't bother me that much. People come in all shapes and sizes. Being height mogged is almost like being face mogged, which is just kind of like, or when you get to my age, you start getting age mogged. It's kind of like, whatever, man. The being age mogged actually isn't that bad. Because it can be harder as you get older. It can be harder to kind of take young people seriously. So it's so when you get mogged by them, it's not quite as bad. But you can get frame mogged, and I do get frame mogged by people of all ages. And actually, I really feel like it's older guys who frame mog me worse than younger guys. Now, I don't know if it's because as you put on fat, it makes your frame look bigger. I have no idea. So, yeah, and me, I really haven't found an answer for that. About an answer of like how to deal with I mean, other than to say like, well, I mean, the answer is obvious. The answer is the way I'm going to get over it is to just stop valuing frame. You know, I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. Yeah, I'm not sure it's ever going to be something that, like, I mean, I can recognize intellectually that it has no importance. You know, I don't know, like, it doesn't, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with having a small frame or being short or even being ugly. It's just kind of like, you know, I mean, it's the way your genes are expressing themselves, and it has, you know, really zero importance in the course of eternity. You know, another thing is that it doesn't really belong to you. You know, I think that's the reason that people are so sensitive about about their looks, about, you know, criticism. And again, this is something I know I've mentioned before. People are so sensitive about criticisms of their looks because it feels like one of the most personal attacks you can have. And why, like, you know, people like where people really get mad when they get rejected is when they get rejected over their looks. And when I say looks, I can mean, like, you know, looks, height, you know, even frame, whatever. People take I mean, because people really identify with their physical form. You know, you really, I mean, because your whole life, you know, that's how this is how you, because your physical form is how you experience physical reality through your physical form. You know, you've got no other experience other than that. So it's totally natural that you would identify with your physical form as you, you know. You know, one thing that really helps with this is if you can really, you know, realize that it's not you, which I'm able to, and I don't mean like intellectually understand it, I mean actually like become aware of it. And then at which point, not only do you start to view your own body as just an avatar, but everybody else's too. So, like, let's say we all jumped in, like, you know, machines, giant robot machines, and some of us were in smaller, uglier machines, and some of us were in giant Chad-like machines. We wouldn't, you know, we would feel no sense of inferiority to the people in the Chad-like machines, because we would know that those were just, it wasn't really them. You know, we know that underneath is some person who could look like whatever. You know, maybe they look worse than us. You know, that's kind of how it is. That's kind of how it is with looks. If you can realize that, it really will help a lot. It will help like, I mean, it'll solve the issue. You'll just stop caring, because you'll actually realize, like, oh wow, I mean, it really doesn't matter, because it really has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. This actually brings this brings up, you know, another thing that I wanted to think of. Just feelings of inferiority in general. It is less of a problem for me, because, like I said, I don't really care about my face, but I do care about my frame. But it is less of a problem as, for me, you know, what helped, how are we doing for time, was, and I've been thinking about this for a while, is to getting rid of feelings of inferiority. Ultimately, feelings of inferiority are based on delusion. They're based on a misperception of reality. So the now notice I said delusion, not illusion. You can read about this if you read about in Buddhist concepts, and I'm not advocating Buddhism, but they're definitely right about this. Feelings of inferiority are products of delusion, in which case you're seeing something that isn't really there. And that's like, you're seeing your physical form as really you. You're seeing the person who you feel inferior to. You're seeing that as really them. So it's two real delusions. Now, because if Chad's physical form really is him, then you are inferior to Chad, and that's just a fact. and the same thing is, you likely also have delusions of superiority as well. I mean, I do. I mean, pretty much everybody does, because like, or like you might feel superior in some ways. And even somebody who seems really humble, like I've never considered myself an arrogant type. But one thing that I come to realize is, wait, there really are people who I'm not consciously aware of it, but I do feel like, do consider myself superior to. Like, then I'll be like somebody who's maybe like, I'll be talking to somebody and maybe they're like really stupid or something. I'll have, feelings of superiority over them. And the same thing is if I'm height mogging or frame mogging somebody, I will feel superior. And it's not something I'm going to be like, ha ha ha, like I'm better than or anything like that. But I'm going to have this instinctive feeling of superiority. And both the feelings of superiority as well as feelings of inferiority are based on the exact same delusion, which is that, you are really you and they are really them. And when you can see that that's not the case, when you can really see reality, again, I want to make this clear, there's a big difference between intellectually understanding it. I'm suspecting most of you guys watching this probably intellectually understand what I'm saying, and it's not making you feel any better. There's a big difference between intellectually understanding it and actually seeing it. And when you see it, it's like, oh, wow, like everything kind of makes sense. And those feelings of superiority and inferiority will disappear. Now, the one problem is that if you're somebody like me, and like most people, like 99% of humanity, it will be very difficult to sustain that realization. And pretty much anything you do that involves interacting with the world will only reinforce the delusion and get away with. So like to me that being able to see reality, of like seeing it has these looks have no inherent existence and stuff like that. For me to be able to see that and maintain it, I'd probably like need to sit in a dark room by myself 24/7. Interacting with reality naturally tends to kind of reinforce the delusion. And so there's no real practical way to sustain it. I mean, other than just become that spiritually advanced. Although I guess if you can see it once or twice, it does kind of help, because it does you're able to kind of like go back to it and be like, yeah, but I know that none of this shit really matters. And ever since I have like had this like sort of eureka moment, it hasn't bothered me quite as much. As I think another thing is, I've told you what to do, but I didn't tell you how to do it. I'm not really sure how I did it. Like it wasn't like, I meditated on it, which is what I think most people would tell you to, like most, like a Buddhist, like would definitely tell you, go and meditate on it. For me, it was more of an issue of just studying the Bible, studying commentaries on the Bible, and I also read a lot of Buddhist stuff, and just thinking about it. But not any like pure like watch your breath type meditation. I have done that, to deal with anxiety, but I didn't do it to like make any types of realizations. Largely because I just don't enjoy it, and I also not really sure it would have worked. I think that thinking and reading got me further along. But like I said, on the other hand, I have a harder time sustaining it. That was one of the reasons I had mentioned earlier, like one of the reasons I was inclined to, now I'm starting to feel a little stronger, and I may go back to lifting weights again. But, one of the reasons that I'm hesitant to do it is because I know that lifting weights is going to make me identify more, with the physical form, which is going to paradoxically make me more insecure about my frame, about my biggest insecurity. So, but I mean, that's vanity for you. So yeah. Anyway, if you watched the whole thing, or you're still watching now, you might have learned something. Hopefully you did. That's all for now. See you in the next.